press conference on crime because we believe that crime is what is on the minds of nearly everybody in St. Kitts-Nevis as the #1 issue with which we are grappling in the country. Crime is ravaging our people and our country, and it is raging. The streets are hot. That's what I'm hearing whenever I go out there. I'm being told that the streets are hot, and the predictions are that it's only going to get worse. In all of this, we've just heard the news that the persons, individuals who were arrested on the weekend for the brutal death of Sergeant Leon Powell were released without charge. And so, in that context, we realize that despite the hundreds of cameras that we hear about all the time, it just doesn't seem to be working. I'm asking the question again, as I asked after the incident outside Irishtown Primary School, are these cameras working? Or it's just show and political talk? Because again, we see what has happened in this case. The Jamaica Observer of August 18, just Tuesday gone, had an article in there indicating that crime is going down in St. Kitts-Nevis. It actually said the sustained downward trend in crime in recent years. That's how it was actually quoted in that newspaper. But in spite of all these claims, whenever I speak to people on the street or citizens and residents of St. Kitts-Nevis on a daily basis, see the undeniable evidence that crime is rising and increasing in the Federation. So what does it profit the government or anybody to try to go out and say, oh, crime is trending downwards? When in truth and in fact, anybody you ask, whether they're supporters of the government or not, will tell you that crime is increasing. So who are they fooling? But a big article in the Jamaica Observer, obviously coming from here, saying that crime is trending and going downwards because of all of the things that this government is doing. 2 murders over the weekend in 3 days. And last night, a shooting in Nevis Street. And I'm told a shooting this morning as well. That I haven't confirmed, but I've heard that in Taylor's Village this morning. Right, so here we. 2 murders in 3 days over the weekend. Today is Wednesday. So we're talking about a murder on Saturday, a murder on Monday, shooting on Tuesday and Wednesday morning, and crime is trending downward. Who are we fooling? We can see that the country's crime situation has worsened, and worsened to the point where police officers are being gunned down. We haven't heard that for a long time in this country. 3 within the last 8 months. 2 within the last 3 months. And the murders that we're hearing of, the one on Monday, for example, was one of the most gruesome murders you've heard about for a long time, where the victim was bludgeoned, stabbed to death, and the murderers, who are now so bold and brazen in their criminality, that they left cryptic messages written in the victim's blood on the wall. And I wonder, wow, is this where we are as a country? Is this where we are? Heartless, without conscience. I'm sure this is not who we are as people of St. Kitts-Nevis. So in all of this, where is the leadership in the Ministry of National Security in all of this? Sadly lacking. Turning a blind eye, burying our heads in the sand, and making people believe that things are fine in the Federation. National security in our nation is almost non-existent. And instead of acknowledging this ugly truth, Dr. Harris and his government continue to bury their heads in the sand and to try and con people and deceive people into believing that all is well, that they're so serious about fighting crime and that crime is trending downwards. They are totally disconnected from the reality on the ground. And if you doubt me, I heard Comrade Jeffrey talking about getting the church to, do all these things. Only yesterday, SKNLP put out a release about a meeting on Tuesday this week. We had a murder on Saturday, a murder on Monday, and Tuesday this week. After that, the Ministry of Ecclesiastical Affairs and 35 representatives of faith-based organizations, according to SKNLP, met to discuss matters, pertaining to the ministry and the church. Absolutely nothing about crime. You believe that? Absolutely nothing about crime. If they spoke about it, it was not reported. So it can't be that they spoke about it. Absolutely nothing reported about crime in that situation. A murder on Saturday and a murder on Monday. And you meet with 35 people, 35 representatives of churches, and not a word about what is happening. Are we really burying our heads? Some people are now calling the environment the Wild Wild West. But the Ministry of Ecclesiastical Affairs and the church seem unaware of what is happening in our communities. People are scared for their lives. The citizens feel unprotected, helpless, and hopeless. They don't expect anything to happen. But crime is not a priority for the ministry and for the church, and that is frightening, disconnected from reality on the ground. As a single mother, I hear the daily cries of other single mothers and women in general who are victims of crime and who are traumatized by crime. I myself had my home broken into maybe a little over a year ago. And so I understand what that is like. Even worse, I have someone who told me that she was confronted by a gunman in her house, just she and her son lives there. People are traumatized by what is happening. And only last night, in that same shooting in Nevis Street, one mother saw her son being rushed to the Joseph and France Hospital for gunshot wounds in his leg, I understand. And the other mother was so traumatized, so scared to death, because the shootings took place outside of her house, and we heard of her and her family scrambling to safety for their lives, scrambling to safety for their lives. That is the situation that we're faced with in terms of crime, but the Ministry of Ecclesiastical Affairs and the church don't think that that is something that should be on the agenda. We have to ask ourselves a lot of questions about that. Lots of questions. So I begin to ask, well, why is the church so silent now? They were not silent before. So why is the church so silent now? Is it that the church is now being controlled by the government and just carrying out the government's agenda, whatever it is? And so they're no longer concerned about crime and the other ills that are happening in our society? This is dangerous territory. I want to say to the people of St. Kitts-Nevis, and to the single mothers in particular, and to all those mothers who have lost their sons from senseless gun violence, that we in Labour care. We feel your pain, and upon taking office, we will, within 6 months of taking office, institute a program that would assist with the needs of persons like you. All those mothers who have lost their sons from gun violence, and women who have had to go through and who are traumatized by violence, because it's not just a matter of the legal matters, whether or not the perpetrators were caught. That is very important. But how about the emotional side of it that these people go through and their families? How about the financial side? Who is taking care of them? Who is really looking after them? Many of them tell me they're just left there on their own. And we want to provide that assistance for healing in those situations. And so we in Labour will provide those programs to assist such families and provide opportunities for engagement by all in the fight against crime. Thank you.